long call buyers with covered call sellers, nothing happens to the underlying stock other than information flow about the stock causing the stock to go up for fundamental reasons or technical reasons, momentum, moving day average, whatever. But insofar as the volume on the long side exceeds the natural offsetting volume on the short side, the selling side, the market maker steps in, must hedge their position, and that creates the balloon up. Now, I watch CNBC, I watch Bloomberg, I read all this stuff, and has anybody heard that explanation? Great, but I'm very disappointed, and it's not uncommon that even the regulators are just starting to, I think they understand this, I mean the ones in senior positions, but they don't know how to handle it. Now there are other things, and I'll give it back to you but there are other things that need to be discussed in the situation because the market maker, in an effort to support now the short seller, Melvin Capital, they will typically borrow the stock, as I think everybody here knows that. They borrow the stock, give it to the short seller. They actually sell it. It never goes to the short seller. Everything stays on the books of the market maker. They sell the stock. They put the cash on their books, memo credit to Melvin Capital, and that's collateral against the short. And that's the typical short selling. But that's not what happened with GameStop. It did in the beginning, but when the shorting got out of hand on the hedge fund side of the fence, the market makers created synthetic shorts. And that's a whole other issue, and we can talk about that. But the synthetic shorting and naked shorting, which is illegal, a market maker can execute naked shorts insofar as they're facilitating a trade. They're not to facilitate someone shorting a position for an extended period of time. So the regulators are looking at that now as to whether or not there was this naked shorting by the market makers on behalf of the hedge funds in order to facilitate the shorts. And I think they're going to uncover that there were some issues there, which gets me to a final point. I'll give it back to you. The penalty for naked shorting is really not significant enough to stop it. Citadel and Goldman and all of the players get fined constantly for doing this. As long as it's not intentional and never is intentional, they get fined. And I think one of the things we need to do is discuss increasing the fines for this lapse of memory and inefficiency in the system to the point where people wake up and pay attention. Right now, the fines are insignificant. So I have more to say on that, but that's just a taste of where I'm going. Well, it's got to be technology. I mean, we were very paper intensive. In my early days, you had trade date plus 5 to settle, and it was paper. And when we had the crash in '87, it took 2 weeks to settle trades that happened on the day, the Friday and the Monday after the crash. So that's the main thing. I think technology is the answer to any question like what's the difference between now and before. But
right. So everything has greatly increased in speed.
Yeah. But I think getting back to my points and retail now is a big player on the street, and GameStop shows how important it is to address, that sector.
Well, Charles, is that because trades are free now? I mean, back in '87, it would have cost $50 to call your broker and trade, right? Is that why? Do you think that's encouraging?
Well, the trading was more expensive. The bid-offer spreads were wider, and most of the velocity trading was done by institutions that had a moral compass. Not that as a matter of fact, I'm in favor of what the Reddit boys did and girls. They were right in what they did, so I'm not knocking them.
And this is coming from a hedge fund manager, so that's.
But an institution would never push the system that far because the regulators would come down on them, saying, in other words, the question you have to ask yourself: well, why didn't a hedge fund do what Keith Gill did and his followers? Because a hedge fund would do that to a certain point and then cut it because the SEC would be in on them.
I see. So when the retail players rallied together, there was no. I guess there wasn't a single target, or is that why why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they go after them?
Well, if Goldman Sachs tried to execute a short squeeze, they have executive management that at some point would have said, we've made enough money, now cut it out, because the SEC will be on our backs and we don't need those two-bit no good